How about if I tell you a great story?
Hey, look at that.
And how about if I create characters that you're going to love?
Oops, I forgot he was blind.
I think most people will acknowledge that Hollywood knows how to tell a story. And what does that mean? They know how to make a great movie. And so for me, a video game had to tell a great story because it's about creating entertainment.
Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Doing just fine. How are you?
How does, I guess, script writing for a computer game differ from a book or a Hollywood movie?
A book or a movie is a totally linear medium, meaning that you start off from one point and you go all the way to the end, and you generally don't want to skip to the end unless you want to ruin it for yourself. But with a game, the entire thing is interactive, and so we have to account for that when we design the game and when we design the story. So we have Act 1, which sort of introduces the characters and gets the player to understand what's going on. Act 2 is the big meat of what's happening. Then Act 3 is the big climactic explosion. And in between all that, we have, you can go any number of different directions. We have to have big pockets of interactivity where our characters can do almost anything, where the player can manipulate them in any sort of ways. In our games, you can ultimately do really good and get what we call good karma.
Sorry, okay.
And have a happy ending, or you could do really bad and have a bad karma ending. And so there's a moral component to everything we do, including the story, and that's sort of how it all ties together.
Next is on to the design department, where designers like Farzad turn Chris's characters and script into pictures. The choices behind how those characters look are extremely important as they affect how you and I respond. How would you say that computer characters differ from movie characters?
I think the main difference is that you get the opportunity to interact with the computer game characters. You get to control them, you get to make them go this way, you get to make them go that way. You can control their emotional states, you can make them laugh, cry, making the story go where you want it to go. We try to create a very realistic fantasy world, one that a player just wants to dive into and start interacting with.
What are the main ingredients in trying to create that?
We have to create everything from the cup that goes on the table. You have to create the table, and then the room that the table goes in, the building that the room it goes in, and the landscape that the building goes on, and of course we have many landscapes. So you're creating every nut and bolt in this fantasy world, and I think that's what's the most rewarding aspect.
Next to the storyboarding and the artwork, you basically have sound, which plays a very important role. It adds to the gaming experience. It makes it more realistic. Sometimes it can even give you a cue, like it will give away that there's a little danger coming, or you did something right, like a positive feedback or a negative feedback.
How do you create the sound then?
Well, first you record it, or you take it from a CD library. Here, for instance, is a voice that we recorded.
This is Rupture Farms.
We basically try to process the sound to give it more of a specific character, make it sound smaller, make it a cute character. I'm going to pitch it a little more.
This is Rupture Farms.
It's a little higher pitched, and it's a little cuter.
Can you tell me more about GameSpeak then, and what that's all about?
GameSpeak is where the characters kind of have a very limited amount of words that they can use, and the player can actually trigger the words. And in that way, they can actually interact with other characters in the game. So you can decide what your character is going to say, and the other character will respond. It's very important. It gives the player a control over the character, and depending on that, the game will go in a certain direction. So it's very important to the gaming experience.